Hello there, and welcome to The Sleepy Astronaut, where the cosmos gets cozy and science drifts gently toward dreams. Tonight's peaceful journey takes us to one of the most beautiful relationships in our solar system, a quiet conversation that's been happening for billions of years between two old friends. The ocean listens to the moon, and tonight we'll discover exactly why this celestial whisper shapes our world in ways both profound and surprisingly intimate. Before we begin this gentle voyage through tides and time, I'd love to know where in the world you're listening from tonight. Are you near an ocean, perhaps hearing the distant rhythm of waves? Or maybe you're far inland, surrounded by mountains and meadows? Wherever you are, you're part of this same gravitational dance we're about to explore, this cosmic ballet that touches every drop of water on our blue marble home. If you find this exploration soothing, if the mysteries of our universe help quiet your thoughts after a long day, I'd be ever so grateful if you gave this video a like and perhaps subscribed. It helps this little corner of calm reach others who might need a peaceful pause with the stars. Now, I do hope this isn't so fascinating that it keeps you awake, but if it does, well, at least you'll drift off knowing something beautiful about the invisible threads that connect our world to the heavens above. So settle in, let your breathing slow, and prepare to discover why every tide that kisses the shore is really a love letter from the moon. Because somewhere in the gentle pull between earth and sky, between water and light, lies one of the most elegant examples of how everything in our universe is connected, dancing together in perfect, eternal rhythm. The ocean has been listening to the moon for over 4 billion years, and their conversation is written in the language of gravity, that mysterious force that keeps our feet on the ground and our planet in its orbit. But gravity, as we'll see, is far more than just the thing that makes apples fall from trees. It's a cosmic sculptor, an invisible artist that reaches across the vast emptiness of space to touch our world with the gentlest of hands. Imagine, if you will, that you're standing on a beach at twilight. The waves roll in with a rhythm so steady, so reliable, that coastal peoples have set their clocks by it for thousands of years. High tide, low tide, high tide, low tide, a heartbeat that never stops, never falters, never forgets its ancient promise. What you're witnessing isn't just water moving back and forth. You're watching gravity in action, watching the moon reach down across 240,000 miles of empty space to caress our oceans with invisible fingers. The moon, our faithful companion, is constantly tugging at every drop of water on Earth. Not with violence or force, but with a gentle, persistent pull that's been shaping our world since the very beginning. This gravitational embrace is strongest on the side of Earth facing the moon, where the lunar pull is most direct. Here, the ocean bulges outward, reaching toward its celestial partner like a flower turning toward the sun. This bulge of water is what we call high tide, and it follows the moon across our planet as Earth rotates beneath it. But here's where the dance becomes even more beautiful. On the opposite side of Earth, the side facing away from the moon, another bulge forms. This might seem puzzling at first, like finding two dancers spinning in opposite directions to the same music. But this second bulge exists because Earth itself is being pulled toward the moon, leaving the water on the far side behind, creating what scientists call a tidal bulge through inertia. It's as if the planet is gently sliding away from the water, allowing it to pool in a second high tide. These two bulges, one reaching toward the moon and one left behind by Earth's motion, create our twice-daily tidal rhythm. As our planet spins, these watery mountains travel around the globe, bringing high tide to shores everywhere in a stately procession that's as reliable as sunrise. Most coastal areas experience 2 high tides and 2 low tides every 24 hours and 50 minutes. That extra 50 minutes accounting for the fact that the moon is also moving in its orbit, requiring Earth to rotate just a little bit more to catch up. The sun, though much larger and more massive than the moon, plays a supporting role in this gravitational symphony. Being so much farther away, its tidal influence is only about half as strong as the moon's. But when the sun and moon align during new moons and full moons, their gravitational pulls combine to create what we call spring tides, the highest highs and lowest lows of the tidal cycle. When they're at right angles to each other during the moon's quarter phases, they partially cancel each other out, creating neapy tides, the gentlest tides of the month. This celestial choreography creates patterns within patterns, rhythms within rhythms. The moon's elliptical orbit brings it closer to Earth at some times than others. When the moon reaches its closest approach, called perigee, the tides are especially strong. Combined with the right phase of the moon, these peregrine spring tides can be dramatic indeed, sometimes catching coastal communities by surprise with their power and reach. But the conversation between ocean and moon isn't just about the rise and fall of water levels. It's about energy, about the slow, patient transfer of rotational momentum from our spinning planet to our orbiting satellite. The friction created by these massive movements of water across ocean floors and coastlines is gradually slowing Earth's rotation. Our days are getting longer, though so slowly that you'd need an atomic clock to notice. At the same time, this energy is pushing the moon slowly away from us, about 1.5 inches each year. A cosmic farewell happening so gradually that it spans geological ages. This tidal friction has been shaping our world in profound ways throughout Earth's history. Early in our planet's youth, when the moon was closer and Earth spun faster, the tides were enormous, perhaps hundreds of feet high. These ancient supertides may have played a crucial role in mixing the primordial oceans, distributing nutrients and chemicals that would eventually give rise to life itself. The tides carved coastlines, created tidal pools where life could experiment with living both in water and on land, and established the rhythmic pulse that still echoes in the biology of countless creatures today. Even now, in our modern era, the moon's influence on our oceans creates some of the most spectacular natural phenomena on Earth. In the Bay of Fundy, between New Brunswick and Nova Scotia, the unique shape of the coastline and seafloor creates a resonance effect that amplifies the tides to extraordinary heights. Here, the difference between high and low tide can exceed 50 feet, creating a landscape that transforms completely twice each day. Boats rest on mudflats at low tide, then float in deep harbours just hours later. It's as if the landscape itself is breathing with the rhythm of the moon. In other parts of the world, the tides create entirely different wonders. The reversing waterfalls of Canada, where tidal bores rush up rivers with such force that they temporarily reverse the flow of fresh water. The horizontal waterfalls of Australia, where massive tidal movements squeeze through narrow gorges, creating the illusion of waterfalls flowing sideways across the landscape. The tidal races of Scotland and Wales, where the meeting of opposing tidal currents creates whirlpools and standing waves that have challenged sailors for centuries. Indigenous peoples around the world have long understood this relationship between moon and sea. The Inuit have dozens of words for different types of sea ice, many of them describing how ice behaves under different tidal conditions. Pacific Northwest tribes plan their salmon runs around the complex interactions of tides, seasons, and lunar cycles. Aboriginal Australians incorporated tidal knowledge into their songlines, those ancient maps sung across the landscape that encode everything from navigation to natural history to spiritual belief. Modern science has revealed that the moon's influence extends far beyond what our ancestors could have imagined. The gravitational pull that creates ocean tides also affects the solid Earth itself, causing our planet to bulge and flex by as much as a foot twice each day. This Earth tide is invisible to us, but sensitive instruments can measure it, and it's strong enough to affect everything from GPS satellites to particle accelerators. Even the atmosphere experiences tides, with air pressure fluctuating in rhythm with the moon's passage overhead. The conversation between ocean and moon is also a story about time itself, about the deep rhythms that govern our planet. The tidal cycle of 12 hours and 25 minutes, half the time it takes the moon to return to the same position overhead, creates a natural clock that runs independently of our solar day. This lunar rhythm has influenced human cultures in countless ways, from the timing of religious festivals to the structure of calendars to the mysterious connections some claim to feel between lunar phases and human behaviour. Scientists continue to discover new layers to this ancient relationship. They've found that tidal forces help drive ocean currents that distribute heat around the globe, playing a crucial role in regulating Earth's climate. The mixing of deep and surface waters caused by tidal action brings nutrients to the surface, supporting the microscopic life that forms the base of marine food chains. Even the moon's role in stabilizing Earth's axial tilt, preventing the wild climate swings that would result from a wobbling planet, can be traced back to the same gravitational forces that lift our tides. As we look to the future, this celestial conversation will continue to evolve. The moon will continue its slow retreat, and in billions of years it will appear smaller in our sky. The tides will gradually weaken, Earth's rotation will slow further, and eventually our planet will become tidally locked to the moon, just as the moon is now tidally locked to Earth. One side of our world will always face our satellite, and the tides will cease their ancient rhythm, leaving only still waters under an unchanging moon. But for now, in our brief moment in cosmic time, we are privileged to witness this beautiful dance. Every time you watch waves roll onto a beach, every time you see boats rise and fall in a harbour, every time you walk across sand exposed by the retreating tide, you're experiencing one of the most fundamental relationships in our solar system. The ocean is listening to the moon, responding to its gravitational whisper with a faithfulness that has endured since the very beginning of our world. This conversation between sea and sky reminds us that we live in a universe where everything is connected, where forces we cannot see shape the world we experience every day. The same gravity that holds us to Earth reaches out across space to move oceans. The same moon that lights our nights pulls at every drop of water on our planet. We are part of this cosmic dance, made of water that once rose and fell with ancient tides, breathing air that has been stirred by gravitational forces beyond our everyday perception. So tonight, as you drift towards sleep, perhaps you'll listen for the ocean's conversation with the moon. Even if you're far from any coast, even if the nearest sea is thousands of miles away, you're still part of this gravitational embrace. The water in your body, the very atoms that make you who you are, all dance to the same cosmic rhythm that lifts the tides. You are connected to the moon, to the ocean, to the vast and beautiful clockwork of the universe itself. In this connection, in this ancient conversation between earth and sky, we find something profoundly comforting. We are not alone in the cosmos. We are part of something larger, something that has been unfolding for billions of years and will continue long after we're gone. But what makes this celestial choreography even more fascinating is how it extends far beyond the simple rise and fall of water levels. You see, the ocean's response to the moon creates what scientists call tidal friction, and this friction is slowly but surely changing both partners in this cosmic dance. As the Earth spins beneath those bulges of water, it's constantly rubbing against them, like a wheel turning against a brake. This friction is gradually slowing down our planet's rotation. Millions of years ago, a day on Earth was only about 22 hours long. The moon's gentle but persistent pull has been stretching our days ever since, adding precious minutes and seconds across geological time. Meanwhile, something equally remarkable happens to the moon. 8 centimetres farther from us each year. It's roughly the same rate your fingernails grow, which means this ancient partnership is literally growing apart, though so gradually that countless generations will witness the same familiar moon hanging in their night sky. This process has been unfolding for billions of years, and it will continue for billions more. Eventually, far in the future, the Earth and moon will become tidally locked, with the same side of Earth always facing the moon, just as the same side of the moon always faces us now. But that's a story for a time so distant that our sun itself might have other plans entirely. The ocean's conversation with the moon also shapes life in ways both obvious and subtle. Countless creatures time their most important moments to the lunar cycle. Sea turtles emerge from the waves to lay their eggs during specific moon phases, guided by an ancient wisdom encoded in their very cells. Coral reefs synchronize their spawning to the moon's rhythm, releasing clouds of eggs and sperm into the currents when conditions are just right. Even creatures that never see the ocean feel the moon's influence through the tides. Migratory birds use tidal patterns to time their journeys, knowing when mudflats will be exposed and rich with food. Coastal forests grow differently on their seaward sides, their roots adapted to the regular rhythm of saltwater advancing and retreating. But perhaps most beautifully, the tides connect us to the very birth of life itself. Many scientists believe that tidal pools, those small pockets of seawater left behind when the tide retreats, may have been nature's first laboratories. In these shallow, sun-warmed pools, simple molecules could concentrate and combine, protected yet stirred by the gentle rhythm of the tides. The same lunar pull that moves our modern oceans may have provided the steady heartbeat that helped life take its first tentative steps. Yeah, the moon's influence on our oceans also plays a crucial role in Earth's climate system. The mixing action of the tides helps distribute heat around the globe, stirring deep, cold water up to the surface and pushing warm surface water down into the depths. Without this constant stirring, our oceans would become stratified layers of different temperatures, dramatically altering weather patterns and making much of our planet far less hospitable to life. This tidal mixing also brings nutrients from the deep ocean up to the sunlit surface waters where they can feed the tiny plants called phytoplankton. These microscopic organisms form the base of the ocean's food web and produce much of the oxygen we breathe. In a very real sense, every breath you take is connected to the moon's ancient pull on our seas. The relationship between ocean and moon has also profoundly shaped human culture and understanding. Long before we knew about gravity or orbital mechanics, coastal peoples developed sophisticated knowledge of tidal patterns. They knew which phases of the moon brought the highest and lowest tides, when to fish, when to gather shellfish, when to travel safely across tidal flats. This knowledge became embedded in languages, stories and traditions passed down through generations. Many coastal cultures developed lunar calendars, recognizing that the moon's cycle provided a more reliable timekeeper than the sun for certain activities. Fishermen would plan their expeditions around the moon, knowing that certain fish were more active during specific tidal conditions. The regularity of the tides also provided early humans with one of their first glimpses into the predictable nature of natural phenomena. Unlike weather, which can be chaotic and surprising, the tides follow patterns that can be learned and anticipated. This predictability may have helped spark the human desire to understand and predict other natural events, contributing to the eventual development of astronomy, mathematics, and science itself. Even today, our modern understanding of this relationship continues to deepen. Satellite measurements now allow us to track tiny changes in the moon's orbit and Earth's rotation with extraordinary precision. We've discovered that the gravitational dance between Earth and Moon is far more complex than early scientists imagined, influenced by the changing distribution of water and ice on our planet's surface. Climate change is actually affecting this ancient rhythm. As ice sheets melt and add water to the oceans, and as that water redistributes around the globe, it subtly changes how Earth responds to the moon's pull. It's a reminder that even the most fundamental and ancient relationships in our solar system are not immune to the rapid changes humans are bringing to our planet. Yet despite all our scientific knowledge, despite our ability to predict tides with remarkable accuracy and measure the moon's distance to the centimetre, there remains something deeply mysterious and moving about this relationship. Standing by the ocean at night, watching moonlight dance on the waves, feeling the salt breeze and hearing the eternal rhythm of water meeting shore, we connect with something larger than ourselves. The ocean listens to the moon with a faithfulness that spans eons. It responds to every gravitational whisper, every subtle change in the lunar pull, with movements vast and graceful. And in that response, in that ancient conversation between celestial bodies, we find one of the universe's most beautiful examples of how seemingly separate things are actually connected in ways both profound and gentle. This connection reminds us that we too are part of this conversation. The water in our bodies, the calcium in our bones, the very atoms that make us who we are, all were forged in stars and stirred by cosmic forces. We are not separate from the dance between ocean and moon. We are part of it. Temporary participants in a story that began billions of years ago and will continue long after we're gone. And perhaps that's the most comforting thought of all. In a universe that can sometimes feel vast and indifferent, the faithful conversation between ocean and moon offers us something reassuring. The knowledge that connection, rhythm, and response are built into the very fabric of existence. Now, as we've traced the ocean's obedience to the moon through the grand mechanics of gravity and witnessed the birth of our planet's rhythmic heartbeat, let's turn our attention to something rather more intimate. You see, while we've been gazing upward at celestial choreography, there's been another story unfolding beneath the waves. A story of life itself, learning to dance to the moon's ancient tune. Because here's the thing about tides, they're not just water moving about, they're the very metronome of evolution, the steady beat that has shaped not just coastlines, but the creatures that call those edges home. And nowhere is this more beautifully evident than in the quiet, methodical lives of the animals who've made the intertidal zone their world. Picture, if you will, a rocky shore at dawn. The tide is retreating, leaving behind a glistening tapestry of pools and crevices, each one a miniature universe. In these temporary worlds, an extraordinary drama plays out twice daily. As the ocean withdraws, it reveals creatures that have learned not just to survive, but to thrive in this most unpredictable of neighborhoods. They become masters of timing, their entire existence synchronized to the moon's pull as precisely as any Swiss timepiece. Take the humble limpet, that unassuming cone-shaped mollusk clinging to the rocks. To the casual observer, it appears motionless, perhaps even lifeless. But this little creature is actually performing one of nature's most remarkable feats of navigation. When the tide is high and the water's safe, the limpet ventures forth to graze on algae, sometimes travelling several feet from its home base. Yet when the tide begins to turn, it returns with uncanny precision to the exact same spot on the rock, settling into a depression that fits its shell like a bespoke suit of armour. How does it manage this? The limpet has developed what scientists call a homing instinct, so refined that it can navigate back to its precise starting point in complete darkness, through churning waters, across terrain that looks identical in every direction. It's as if each limpet carries within itself a tiny compass calibrated not to magnetic north, but to the rhythm of the tides. Some researchers believe they follow chemical trails. Others suggest they use the subtle vibrations of waves against the rocks. But perhaps most remarkably, they seem to possess an internal clock that tells them exactly when it's time to head home before the retreating waters leave them stranded. This is no accident of evolution. Over millions of years, those limpets that mistimed their journeys, that lingered too long in their wanderings or returned too early to their shelters, simply didn't survive. The ones that thrived were those whose internal rhythms synchronized most perfectly with the moon's schedule. They've become living embodiments of tidal time, their heartbeats, their feeding patterns, their reproductive cycles, all choreographed to the celestial dance above. But limpets are hardly alone in this aquatic ballet. The intertidal zone teems with creatures whose lives are governed by the moon's schedule with a precision that would make a railway conductor weep with envy. There are the acorn barnacles, those volcano-shaped crustaceans that pepper the rocks like ancient coins. When submerged, they extend feathery legs through their shell openings, filtering plankton from the water with delicate sweeping motions. But as the tide retreats, they seal themselves tight, creating their own private atmosphere, complete with enough moisture to last until the ocean returns. The timing of their feeding is crucial. They must maximize their filter feeding during high tide while conserving energy and moisture during the long hours of exposure. Some species have evolved to feed more actively during the stronger tides of the new and full moons, when the water brings richer concentrations of nutrients. They've learned to read the moon's phases not through sight, but through the subtle changes in water pressure, current strength, and the very rhythm of the waves themselves. Then there are the marine snails, the periwinkles and dogwhelks, each species occupying its own precise band on the rocky shore, like concert-goers in assigned seating. The rough periwinkles live highest up, where they might be submerged only during the highest tides of the month. They've adapted to breathe air for extended periods, their gills modified to function almost like primitive lungs. Lower down, the smooth periwinkles live in the zone that floods twice daily, while the flat periwinkles inhabit the depths that rarely see air at all. This vertical zonation isn't random, it's the result of millions of years of tidal tuning. Each species has found its sweet spot, the precise elevation where it can best balance the opportunities of aquatic life with the challenges of aerial exposure. Move too high and they risk desiccation during the dry hours. Move too low and they face increased competition and predation from fully aquatic species. The tides have essentially created a high-rise apartment building of ecological niches, each floor perfectly suited to its residents' needs. But perhaps nowhere is the moon's influence more dramatic than in the reproductive lives of these tidal creatures. Many species have evolved to spawn during specific tidal conditions, particularly during the spring tides of the new and full moons. The California grunion, a small silvery fish, performs one of nature's most precisely timed reproductive spectacles. On the highest tides following the full and new moons, thousands of grunion ride the waves onto sandy beaches. The females bury themselves tail first in the sand to deposit their eggs, while males curl around them to fertilize the clutch. The timing is absolutely critical. The eggs must be buried at the highest point the tide will reach, ensuring they'll remain safely above water during the 2-week period until the next series of spring tides. When those tides return, they'll wash the hatched fry back out to sea. It's a reproductive strategy that depends entirely on the moon's schedule, and the grunion have internalized this celestial calendar so completely that they can predict the optimal spawning nights with astronomical precision. Even more remarkably, many of these tidal rhythms persist even when the animals are removed from their natural environment. Laboratory studies have shown that shore crabs continue to display peak activity during what would have been high tide times, even when kept in tanks with constant water levels and artificial lighting. Oysters transported far inland continue to open and close their shells in rhythm with the tides of their distant home beaches. It's as if the moon's influence has become so deeply embedded in their biology that they carry a piece of the ocean's rhythm within them wherever they go. This internal tidal clock appears to be controlled by specialized cells that respond to subtle changes in pressure, light, and possibly even gravitational forces. Scientists have discovered that some marine organisms can detect pressure changes as small as those caused by the moon's gravitational pull, essentially feeling the cosmic forces that create the tides. They're living barometers, constantly monitoring the invisible threads that connect them to the celestial dance above. The precision of these biological clocks is truly astounding. Some species can predict not just the timing of high and low tides, but the height of those tides, adjusting their behavior based on whether it's a spring tide or a neap tide. They know when the moon is new or full, not by seeing it, but by feeling its gravitational embrace through the rhythm of the waters around them. And this lunar connection extends beyond the obvious coastal species. Deep-sea creatures living in perpetual darkness, far from any direct tidal influence, still show lunar rhythms in their behavior. Some deep-water corals spawn in sync with the moon's phases. Certain deep-sea worms emerge from the seafloor sediment in numbers that peak during specific lunar cycles. Even in the abyssal depths, where the sun never shines and the tides are barely felt, life remembers the moon. Perhaps most fascinating of all is how these rhythms can be inherited. Young animals raised in laboratories, never having experienced natural tides, still display tidal behaviors when they reach maturity. The moon's rhythm has become encoded in their very DNA, passed down through countless generations like an ancestral memory. It's as if evolution has written the story of the tides into the genetic code of life itself. This creates a profound connection between the cosmic and the cellular. Every heartbeat of a shore crab, every spawning cycle of a coral, every feeding rhythm of a barnacle, is connected to the same gravitational forces that move entire oceans. The moon doesn't just pull on water, it pulls on life itself, creating a vast, interconnected web of biological rhythms that spans from the smallest intertidal pools to the deepest ocean trenches. And we humans are not exempt from this ancient influence. Though we've largely severed our direct dependence on tidal rhythms through technology and artificial environments, traces of lunar connection remain in our biology. Some studies suggest subtle correlations between lunar cycles and human sleep patterns, mood fluctuations, and even birth rates, though these connections are far more tenuous than in our marine cousins. What's undeniable is that we carry within us the genetic heritage of creatures that once lived by the tides. Deep in our evolutionary past, our ancestors were aquatic beings whose lives were governed by the same lunar rhythms that still guide the limpets and barnacles of today's shores. Though millions of years of terrestrial evolution have largely freed us from direct tidal dependence, we remain creatures born of the sea, shaped by the same cosmic forces that continue to orchestrate life in the intertidal zone. Standing on a rocky shore, watching the tide pools come alive as the waters recede, we're witnessing something far more profound than a simple biological community. We're seeing life itself in conversation with the cosmos, each creature a living testament to the moon's ancient influence. These animals haven't just adapted to the tides, they've become extensions of the tidal system itself, their very existence a bridge between the celestial and the terrestrial, between the cosmic rhythm of gravitational forces and the intimate pulse of living hearts. In their precision, their patience, and their perfect synchronization with forces far greater than themselves, these tidal creatures offer us a glimpse into the deeper harmonies that govern our universe. They remind us that we live not in isolation, but as part of a vast, interconnected system, where the dance of distant worlds finds expression in the smallest details of life. Now imagine you're standing on a cliff overlooking the vast Pacific Ocean, watching waves crash against the rocks below. The water rises and falls with such perfect regularity that you could almost set your watch by it. But here's what's truly remarkable. Those waves aren't just moving water around randomly. They're part of an ancient conversation, a gravitational dialogue that's been shaping our planet for billions of years. And the most fascinating part? Every living thing on Earth, including you, carries the memory of this cosmic dance in their very cells. We've explored how the moon pulls our oceans back and forth, creating the rhythmic pulse of tides that has sculpted coastlines and influenced evolution. But there's something even more profound happening here, something that connects the smallest marine organism to the largest whale, and even to us humans living far from any shore. It's the story of biological clocks, evolutionary adaptation, and the invisible threads that tie all life on Earth to the lunar cycles overhead. Think about it for a moment. Why do so many creatures time their most important life events to the phases of the moon? Why do coral reefs across the entire Pacific Ocean spawn on the same night, releasing billions of eggs and sperm into the water in perfect synchronization? Why do certain crabs migrate to beaches only during specific moon phases? And why do some fish species seem to know exactly when the tides will be just right for feeding or reproduction? The answer lies in something scientists call circulunar rhythms, biological cycles that follow the moon's phases rather than the sun's daily journey. These are different from the circadian rhythms we discussed earlier, those internal clocks that help us know when to sleep and wake. 5-day cycle, matching the time it takes for the moon to complete its phases from new moon back to new moon again. These lunar rhythms aren't just fascinating curiosities, they represent one of the most ancient timing systems on our planet. Older than the first forests, older than the first animals to crawl onto land. When life was still confined to the oceans, when the moon was much closer to Earth and the tides were dramatically more powerful than they are today, these rhythms were literally a matter of survival. Picture the early Earth, perhaps 3 billion years ago. The moon loomed much larger in the sky, maybe appearing 3 times bigger than it does today. The tides were colossal, rising and falling hundreds of feet twice daily. In this world of extreme tides, any organism that could predict these massive water movements had an enormous advantage. They could time their feeding, their reproduction, their movement to coincide with the most favourable conditions. Over millions of generations, natural selection favoured creatures with internal clocks that could track not just the daily rhythm of high and low tides, but also the monthly rhythm of spring and neap tides. The organisms that could sense when the moon was full or knew when the tides would be at their most extreme were the ones that survived and passed on their genes. But here's where the story becomes even more intriguing. As these early life forms evolved and eventually colonized land, many of them retained their lunar clocks. It's as if they carried a piece of the ocean with them, an internal compass that still pointed toward our celestial neighbor, even when they were no longer directly affected by its gravitational pull. Today, we can see evidence of these ancient rhythms in the most unexpected places. Take the famous Palolo worm of the South Pacific. Once a year, during the last quarter moon in October or November, these marine worms perform one of nature's most spectacular, synchronized events. The rear portion of their bodies, swollen with reproductive cells, breaks off and rises to the ocean surface in enormous swarms. The timing is so precise that Pacific Islander communities have traditionally harvested these protein-rich segments, knowing exactly which night they'll appear. Or consider the grunion, small silver fish found along the California coast. These remarkable creatures time their spawning runs to coincide with the highest spring tides, which occur during new and full moons. The female grunion ride the waves onto sandy beaches, bury their tails in the sand to deposit eggs, and then ride the next wave back to sea. The eggs remain buried in the warm sand for exactly 2 weeks, developing until the next series of extreme high tides washes the newly hatched fish back into the ocean. But perhaps most remarkably, humans too carry traces of these ancient lunar rhythms. While the connection isn't as obvious as in marine creatures, researchers have found intriguing correlations between lunar cycles and various aspects of human biology and behavior. Some studies suggest that sleep patterns, hormone levels, and even mood can fluctuate with lunar phases, though the effects are subtle and often masked by our modern, artificially lit environment. The human menstrual cycle, averaging about 28 days, has long been noted for its similarity to the lunar month. While this might be coincidence, some researchers propose it could be an evolutionary remnant from our ancient past, when our ancestors were more directly influenced by natural light cycles and lunar rhythms. What's particularly fascinating is how these rhythms persist, even when the environmental cues are removed. Marine biologists have discovered that many sea creatures continue to follow lunar schedules even when kept in laboratory conditions with constant light and temperature. Oysters transported from the Connecticut coast to a landlocked laboratory in Illinois initially opened and closed their shells according to the tide schedule of their home waters. But after several days, they began to shift their rhythm, opening when the moon would have been overhead in Illinois, as if they were responding to gravitational forces even hundreds of miles from the nearest ocean. This suggests that these biological clocks aren't just learned behaviours or simple responses to environmental changes. They appear to be deeply embedded in the genetic code of countless species, molecular metronomes that have been ticking away for hundreds of millions of years. Recent research has begun to uncover the cellular mechanisms behind these lunar rhythms. Scientists have identified specific genes and proteins that oscillate on monthly cycles, distinct from the daily oscillations of circadian clocks. These lunar clocks appear to use different molecular pathways, suggesting they evolved independently and serve different evolutionary purposes. The implications are profound. If lunar rhythms are hardwired into so many living things, it suggests that the moon's influence on life extends far beyond the simple physics of tidal movements. The moon may have acted as a cosmic conductor, orchestrating the tempo of evolution itself. Species that could synchronize their activities with lunar cycles gained advantages in reproduction, feeding, and survival. This synchronization also created opportunities for speciation and biodiversity. When different populations of the same species began responding to slightly different lunar cues, they could become reproductively isolated even if they lived in the same area. Over time, this could lead to the emergence of new species, all dancing to slightly different lunar rhythms. Consider the phenomenon of mass spawning events in coral reefs. On certain nights, usually following full moons during warmer months, entire reef systems explode with reproductive activity. Corals of dozens of different species release their gametes simultaneously, creating underwater blizzards of eggs and sperm. This synchronization serves multiple purposes. It overwhelms predators with sheer numbers, increases the chances of cross-fertilization between distant colonies, and ensures that the developing larvae have the best possible conditions for growth. But the timing has to be perfect. Release the gametes too early or too late, and they might not encounter compatible partners. The corals have evolved exquisitely sensitive biological clocks that can detect not just the phase of the moon, but also subtle changes in water temperature, day length, and tidal patterns. It's a masterpiece of biological timing that has been refined over millions of years. These mass spawning events demonstrate another crucial aspect of lunar rhythms. They create connections across vast distances. A coral colony on one side of the Pacific Ocean might be spawning on the same night as a colony thousands of miles away, all responding to the same lunar signal. In this way, the moon acts as a global synchronizer, coordinating biological events across entire ocean basins. The influence extends to terrestrial environments as well. Many insects, birds, and mammals show lunar-related behaviors, though these are often more subtle than marine examples. Some studies suggest that bird migration patterns can be influenced by lunar phases, possibly because moonlight affects nighttime navigation or because lunar rhythms influence the availability of food sources. Even plant growth can show lunar correlations, though the mechanisms are less clear. Traditional agricultural practices in many cultures have long incorporated lunar timing, planting certain crops during specific moon phases. While some of these practices might be based on coincidence or cultural tradition, others may reflect real biological responses to lunar cycles. What emerges from all this research is a picture of Earth as a planet where life dances to multiple cosmic rhythms. The daily rotation of our planet creates circadian rhythms that govern sleep, metabolism, and countless other biological processes. The yearly orbit around the Sun creates seasonal rhythms that trigger migration, hibernation, and reproductive cycles. And the monthly dance of the Moon creates lunar rhythms that synchronize reproduction, feeding, and other behaviors across species and continents. These rhythms don't operate in isolation. They interact and influence each other in complex ways, creating what scientists call chronobiological networks. A single organism might be responding simultaneously to daily light cycles, seasonal temperature changes, and monthly lunar phases, integrating all these signals to time its activities with exquisite precision. This temporal complexity helps explain why life on Earth is so remarkably diverse and resilient. By distributing activities across different timescales and synchronizing them with celestial cycles, ecosystems can maintain stability while also providing opportunities for change and evolution. As we've traced the Moon's influence from the grand scale of ocean tides down to the molecular clocks ticking away in individual cells, we've discovered that our planet is far more interconnected than it might first appear. The Moon that pulls the tides also pulls at the deepest mechanisms of life itself, creating rhythms that connect a spawning coral to a migrating bird to a human feeling restless on a full moon night. In our modern world, surrounded by artificial lights and constant stimulation, it's easy to forget these ancient connections. But they're still there, still ticking away in our cells, still linking us to the cosmic dance that has shaped life on Earth for billions of years. But here's where things get truly extraordinary. What if I told you that this ancient cosmic conversation between the Moon and our oceans isn't just some poetic metaphor, but the foundation for one of the most ambitious scientific endeavours of our time? Because while we've been exploring how tides shape life on Earth, scientists are now looking to the stars, searching for other worlds where similar conversations might be taking place. You see, when astronomers hunt for potentially habitable planets orbiting distant stars, they're not just looking for the right temperature or the presence of water. They're looking for something far more subtle and profound, the gravitational dance that creates stability, that nurtures complexity, that whispers the possibility of life itself. And increasingly they're realizing that our moon might not just be a beautiful nighttime companion, but one of the most crucial ingredients in Earth's recipe for life. Think about it for a moment. Without our unusually large moon, Earth would be a very different place. Our planet would wobble chaotically on its axis, creating wild climate swings that would make long-term evolution nearly impossible. The days would be shorter, spinning by in just 6 to 8 hours, creating a world of perpetual hurricanes and impossible weather. And without those gentle, persistent tides, the chemical mixing that may have sparked life in the first place might never have occurred. This realization has led to what scientists call the rare moon hypothesis. The idea suggests that large moons like ours are incredibly uncommon, and that most planets in the universe might be spinning alone through space, without the stabilizing influence of a substantial satellite. If this is true, then Earth's story becomes even more remarkable. We're not just living on a planet that happens to have water and the right temperature. We're living on a world that won the cosmic lottery, paired with a companion that has been choreographing the conditions for life for over 4 billion years. But here's what's truly fascinating about this cosmic partnership. It's still evolving. Remember how we discussed that the moon is gradually drifting away from Earth? This isn't just an abstract fact from physics textbooks. It's happening right now at about the same rate your fingernails grow. And as our celestial partner moves away, the conversation between Earth and moon grows quieter. In the distant future, perhaps 1 billion years from now, the moon will be so far away that total solar eclipses will become impossible. Those incredible moments when day turns to night, when the sun's corona blazes around the moon's silhouette, when birds return to roost and flowers close in confusion, those will be relegated to history. The tides will weaken, becoming gentle suggestions rather than the powerful forces that currently reshape our coastlines twice daily. Some scientists wonder if this gradual separation might eventually affect life itself. Will creatures still follow lunar rhythms when the moon becomes a distant, barely influential dot in the sky? Will the ocean's great mixing currents, partly driven by tidal forces, slow down and change the planet's climate? Will future humans look up at a smaller, dimmer moon and wonder what they've lost? But that's still unimaginably far in the future. For now, for us, for every living thing on this planet, the conversation continues. Every night as you drift off to sleep, the moon is pulling at the oceans, orchestrating tides that began their rhythm before the first fish grew legs, before the first flower bloomed, before the first human looked up at the night sky and wondered about their place in the cosmos. And perhaps that's the most beautiful part of this story. We're not separate from this ancient dialogue between earth and sky. We're part of it. The water in your body, the calcium in your bones, the iron in your blood, all of it was forged in the hearts of dying stars and then gathered by gravity into this remarkable planet. The same gravitational forces that create the tides flow through you, connecting you to every ocean, every creature, every moment in Earth's long history. The ocean listens to the moon, yes, but so do you, in the rhythm of your heartbeat, in the cycle of your sleep, in the way you feel drawn to walk along the shore at sunset, watching the waves that have been keeping time with the moon for billions of years. You are not just an observer of this cosmic dance. You are a participant, a note in the grand symphony that plays out between our blue planet and its faithful companion. So tonight, when you see the moon hanging in the darkness, remember that you're witnessing one of the universe's most enduring partnerships. A conversation that began when the Earth was young and will continue long after we're gone. a dialogue written in the language of gravity and time, spoken in the endless rhythm of waves meeting shore, and felt in the quiet pulse of life that connects every living thing to the vast, patient cosmos above. The ocean listens to the moon. As we reach the end of our gentle journey through the cosmos, floating somewhere between the pull of the moon and the push of time, we find ourselves right back where we started, standing on the shore of understanding, watching the eternal dance between earth and sky, water and light, gravity and grace. The ocean, as we've discovered, doesn't simply listen to the moon. It converses with it in a language older than words, older than consciousness, older than life itself. Every tide that rolls in and retreats is a sentence in this cosmic dialogue. Every wave that crashes against the rocks carries a message written in the grammar of gravitational pull and planetary motion. Tonight, as you drift towards sleep, perhaps you'll think differently about that gentle tug you feel when you gaze up at the moon. It's not just light reflecting off a distant rock. It's the conductor of an orchestra that's been playing the same beautiful, complex symphony for billions of years. And you, dear listener, are both audience and instrument in this cosmic composition. The limpets clinging to the rocks below know this rhythm. The corals spawning in synchrony with lunar cycles understand this timing. The sea turtles navigating vast oceans by magnetic fields and tidal memory live this truth. And now, in your own small way, you're part of this ancient knowing too. We've seen how the moon's gravitational embrace shapes not just our oceans, but our very existence. How it carved the coastlines where life first ventured from sea to land. How it stabilized our planet's wobble, giving us the steady seasons that allowed complex life to flourish. How it continues to slow our planet's rotation, second by second, millennium by millennium, in a patient dance that will continue long after we're gone. But perhaps the most beautiful part of this story is how it connects us to everything else. The same forces that move the tides move through us. The same rhythms that govern the spawning of fish and the flowering of coral govern the deeper currents of our own biology. We are, quite literally, made of the same elements that were forged in ancient stars, animated by the same forces that swing planets around suns and moons around planets. The moon that our ancestors looked up at with wonder is the same moon that pulls at your blood tonight. The tides that carried the first molecules of life are the same tides that carried Viking ships and Spanish galleons and the dreams of countless generations who found their way by following the silver path of moonlight across dark waters. And in the end, isn't that what all of this is really about? Connection. The profound, unbreakable connection between all things. The ocean listens to the moon because they're part of the same story, the same system, the same beautiful, chaotic, perfectly imperfect dance of matter and energy and time. You are part of that story too. Every breath you take is connected to the ancient rhythms of photosynthesis that began in tidal pools. Every heartbeat echoes the pulse of tides that have been beating against shores for longer than we can imagine. Every dream you dream is illuminated by the same light that has guided sailors and lovers and storytellers for thousands of years. So when you step outside tomorrow night and look up at the moon, remember that you're not just observing a celestial object. You're participating in a conversation that began before the first word was spoken, before the first song was sung, before the first story was told. You're listening to the same voice that taught the ocean how to breathe, the earth how to sleep, and life itself how to dance. The moon will continue its patient orbit, pulling at tides and hearts and dreams with equal measure. The ocean will continue its endless conversation, whispering secrets in the language of waves and currents, and the ancient memory of salt. And somewhere in that vast, gentle dialogue between earth and sky, your own small story continues to unfold. Rest well tonight, knowing that you're cradled in forces so vast and gentle that they've been singing the same lullaby for billions of years. The ocean is listening to the moon. The moon is listening to the earth, and both are listening to the deeper music of gravity and time and the endless, patient turning of the cosmic wheel. And in that listening, in that ancient, ongoing conversation between sea and sky, perhaps we find the most profound truth of all. We are not separate from the universe. We are the universe, listening to itself, wondering at its own beauty, telling its own story through countless voices, countless waves, countless dreams. The tide is turning, as it always does, as it always will. And in that turning, in that eternal rhythm of advance and retreat, arrival and departure, waking and sleeping, we find our place in the grand symphony of existence. Sweet dreams, fellow traveller. May your sleep be as peaceful as the deep ocean, as rhythmic as the tides, and as illuminated by wonder as the moon's silver path across the water. We hope you enjoyed the story tonight. Before we end our journey, can you comment where you're watching from? Also, let us know what time it is there. We love to hear people joining us from around the world to be a part of our community. Also, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe if you enjoy this story. Good night, fellow space explorer.